Hey everybody, my name is Angie Murenga. You're watching Just Angie. It's the Voices of the Ecclesia. It's the 24th day of December, so Merry Christmas in advance. I hope you're going to have an exciting time and I hope the year has ended well for you. I have an amazing guest in studio today. I will partially introduce him, then he'll introduce himself so that he tells us exactly who he is. But karibu sana, Pastor James.
Thank you so much, Asante Sana. It's great to be here.
I'm really glad that you're here. Pastor James is the campus pastor for Mavuno Hill City.
Yes.
And so I'm so grateful that you're here, that you said yes.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're so welcome. And it's the Christmas season.
I know.
Yeah, so I don't know where to start. I don't want to say, so you're married to one Pastor Dorcas?
So I'm married to an incredible woman. Her name is Pastor Dorcas. Together we lead Hill City campus.
Okay.
But we also have the privilege of leading a network of churches. We call it Mavuno Hill City Network. And so we have several churches. We're about 11 churches right now.
Wow.
So we have the privilege of serving the men and women who lead those different
networks.
communities in the network.
Okay.
We have 3 children,
amazing.
2 boys, 11 and 9, a girl, she's 7. You can imagine having one girl and she's the last born.
I know.
She kind of runs the house.
We'll also pray for her brothers, because honestly, having older brothers, it's not exciting. You're like, oh, we need to start praying for her now.
I know, right? So we have, so we are thankful. God has been good to us. He's blessed us in many ways. We really, really thank Him.
Okay, so I have 2 questions that I'm going to get at. One, we need a scripture for Christmas because it's a Christmas season. But I'd also love to know if you could put the scripture, flow how you want to know. But I really want to know your journey. I want to know where did you come from? Were you with us all this time we've been at Mavuno?
Yeah.
And because also Mavuno, for me, if there was no Mavuno, I say it would have been harder to get me into church. So I feel like Mavuno was there to reach people like me, which I think you still do.
Yeah.
Because me, I was church, no way.
Yeah.
Wasn't my thing. Despite growing up, I think Catholic and going to convent schools, but Mavuno just like fit the bill.
Yeah. Wow. So actually, part of what we'll be talking about in this conversation is just a little more detail of my story and my journey of how I got here. But I joined Mavuno in 2009. I just graduated from the University of Nairobi. I came on board as an intern. And I was in a season of exploring. There was a possibility that I was called to ministry. I could tell that. And so, I got an invitation to apply for this internship. And so I came. It was an exploratory space for me. I was saying, okay, is this where God wants me long term? Let me find out, the earlier the better, and I can start getting ready for impact. I grew up, my story is different from yours. I grew up in church. I got saved young. I grew up in the faith, mainstream church. I grew up Presbyterian, and that was my spiritual heritage. That's where my journey began. I'll get to tell a couple of stories as we move along about that journey and how it has shaped me for where I am today.
And then let me right after campus, you go into the internship.
Yes.
Because I went into the internship after working for a number of years.
Yes.
I think if I'm not wrong, 21 years actually, 17 and 4. So after 21 years of work is when I went into the internship.
Yeah.
But so that means you've never worked outside the church.
So I haven't worked outside the church.
Wow.
Imagine. Yeah. So people get shocked because I tell people, I have a whole Bachelor of Science degree in meteorology of all things.
Oh my
and guys are like, okay, what
was that about?
I always tell them one of the things I've said to God is, God doesn't waste our experiences.
He doesn't.
So I always say to God, I'm waiting to see how you'll use my
This
meteorology. I'll be very amused.
But sometimes I think just to encourage somebody out there, even who is young, a degree is a degree. Just get the degree. It's okay. You'll do what you need to do with it.
Yeah.
But as long as I think you have that qualification,
then
the world is yours. Yeah.
Yes. And what I learned is there's so much value from the value I gained from my 4 years at the University of Nairobi is so much broader than just the academic qualification that I left with.
That's so true.
Yeah, so
those 4 years.
So the 4 years
had a
were
lot
absolutely
more.
useful. They built me up. That's how I connected with the Nairobi Chapel family, because for those 4 years I served at a campus ministry
Was
called
it Salt? Yes.
Salt is where my foundation was sort of reinforced for my faith, but also for my ministry journey. It's part of how I got to connect with Mavuno, so it really is a critical part of how I end up where I am now. Salt was then, I don't know if they've sort of multiplied, but at that point they were only at the University of Nairobi.
Okay.
And so I needed to be there, and God knew I was going to be a pastor, but the university does not have a theological degree.
It doesn't.
And so I went to study what I needed to go and study there, but there are other things that God was doing during those 4 years.
But I think also it helps to study and to study in that kind of environment, because then it helps you reach your people. It helps you understand who your people are, who your almost, I'm saying, clientele, customer, who your congregation is. Because they can also relate, I've been to school, I've been at the campus, I've been there 4 years. So that also makes you relatable.
Yes, I think that's a reality of ministry right now, is that, once in a while I'll preach a sermon and so the people we're trying to reach, sometimes you'll find highly intellectual people.
Very.
People who their temptation, I don't know if this will resonate with you, their temptation is to write off a pastor.
Of course.
What do you understand? Your exposure is limited.
Yes.
And so I know for a fact that there are times when I've preached and I've brought, for example, my scientific background, because I really am a scientist, and I love the sciences and I'm passionate about it. And I've brought that background to bear, and I've said, this is what science means for me. This is how I understand science in the light of the scripture, and so on and so forth. And there are people who that's the thing that spoke to them.
Yes.
Because for them, that's their inclination, or that's their field.
So we can see that that's what God was doing.
I can see
like
that.
You've gone to campus, you've gone there.
It was on script.
Yeah.
It was on script.
It was in the
So
script.
for me, it feels random. I tell people, I studied what, there was a body called the Joint Admissions Board. I studied what they told me.
Really? To study? So they would choose also for you?
I also learned that, actually, the critical issue was I wasn't prepared for that life choice of what do I want to do for the rest of my life. So in my second year of campus, I realized this isn't what I'll practice. I love the sciences. I enjoy them from an academic perspective, but I'm a people person. I'm not going to be the person who then sits in a lab modeling, and that's kind of where I was sort of going with my field. And so in my second year, I read Purpose Driven Life. And it helped me understand myself, and it talks about your shape. So that was the first time I interrogated myself. So my challenge was that by the time I was joining the university at 19, I didn't have the maturity to know how to interrogate that decision. So, I picked the things I liked. I said, I enjoyed math and physics in high school. I want a third science because I've been admitted for a general science degree, sort of landed on meteorology very randomly.
Wow.
Yeah. So by my second year, I almost dropped out actually, because I was like,
this is not what I want to
I can
do.
see myself. I know I won't leave this out long term. And so I realized, okay, actually I could finish my degree and then equip myself for where I will end up in future.
Differently, which is such wisdom. I hope you've gotten that wisdom, especially for young people. Sometimes you want to quit in something. No, just finish it, and then let's see what happens after that and what you can do after that. But I don't think you should quit you should quit in the middle of doing anything. For everyone. And then go also, the long haul.
Yeah, and also if you haven't figured out exactly, sometimes we want to know, what am I gonna do for the rest of my life? There's gonna probably be many twists and turns along the way. So do the thing that you're doing now, do it well, with everything you've got, and then in the next step you'll get closer and closer. You'll align your life more and more to what your long-term
you don't have to know everything now. Just let's keep it moving. I love saying it's about flowing, it's about process, just keep it flowing. Great. So it's Christmas Eve.
It's Christmas Eve. Wow. So I want to read a couple of verses. Matthew chapter 2. It says, verse 1 and 2, it says, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." This story is very deep. A couple of years ago, I love studying the scriptures, and a couple of years ago, it sort of a light bulb came on, And as I answered the question, when you read this story, just this chapter, you realize this is the chapter where King Herod ends up killing all the boys 2 years and below. And you realize that there's a star that the wise men had been following, and the star rose when Jesus was born. And what this says to us is that the wise men had been traveling for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years
following
worth
this
of
star.
That's why King Herod kills the boys 2 years and below. It's because he asked them, he says in the story, he said to them, when did this star first appear? And so it appeared 2 years ago. And so at this point, Jesus is not, he's not baby Jesus, he's a toddler. But they've been traveling for 2 years.
Wow.
Now, this is the thing we sometimes don't understand, that the birth of Jesus was the birth of a king, and it was a significant enough event that it warranted, it warrants my stopping everything that I have been in the process of doing.
Wow.
That must be what happened for these wise men.
Yeah.
When I like to tell people, I read my Bible with imagination. I don't just sort of read. I'm like, these were real people with real lives. All right. What did it cost to travel for 2 years?
For 2 years.
Yeah. So these guys must have been wealthy. If they were wealthy, they probably were important. They probably, they likely were, when they're called wise men, they likely were advisors to rulers in those eastern lands that are being talked about. They were probably not idle, and so on and so forth. And so this travel is a costly thing. Wow. They've put their lives on hold. Presumably they've left their families, or they've uprooted their families to travel with them. And the word they've said to them is, a king has been born. He is worthy of worship, because they are coming with one agenda only.
Wow.
A king has been born. We have come to worship
him.
And so for me, the one thing that pops out for me, we've been talking about this in our sermon series for this month at Mavuno, is that this birth, the thing that we celebrate on Christmas Day, it is worthy of me stopping everything to respond to it.
That is so
it is
powerful.
worthy of you pausing. It's not just about chapati and yam chom, which we are
be.
excited about, and and new clothes. It's about responding to the King. This King who the wise men, their wisdom, because of their wisdom, their response was, we will pay whatever price we need to pay.
And we'll pay with time as well, because I've never thought about the time. The time of 2 years is a very, very long time, on the road. And I'm figuring that's very powerful. I've never seen it from that angle, so I love that. But the time is something of 2 years. And then, I was just thinking as you were sharing, was there a sense of trying to give up in this time, or when you carry people, sometimes when you go with the wise men, so I feel like this is a decision also that you need to make as an individual, because when you carry people, I really hope they went alone. I don't know why I feel like because when you carry people, they'll discourage you on that journey. Year one will pass, they'll be like, hey, Kwani, this your
what did you guys say again?
What did you guys say again? They try to they question you. They say, it's been 1 year, then you're here going another year. So sometimes I even like to do things alone, because me, if I go alone, I'll figure it out. I'll be okay. I can go the long haul because I don't feel like I'm answerable to people.
Absolutely.
Or like I have to ask people or listen to their advice. Absolutely. So I wonder, that would be a good thing to know whether they went alone or whether they went with people. But it must have been, I love that they went the long haul. And then it's reminding me, because when you say the star rose, this star arose. So that's where people have this thing of the star. My star has been taken, so I can see now where it started. That's the origin of the star. So your star is arising as this great king is being born. And I just love that. I love that story, and I love that they were wise men. They were important people. They were people who they were wealthy. They came carrying gifts. I feel like they were very deliberate, very intentional, which I think is also a message around Christmas. Because it's like the whole year we come to the end of the year. It's like a place where now we sit, we reflect, we either regret the year or we are happy about the year. But I love that angle. Stay the long haul. Play the long game.
Absolutely.
Be there for the 2 years. And he's worth following.
We decided we're going to see the King. We decided we're going to worship
the King.
We're going. How long is it taking? We're going.
We're going.
How hard is the journey? We are going. Summer, winter. I mean,
whatever.
2 years is a long time. We're going through it, and we're going to worship the King.
Wow.
But there's something else that's peculiar that happens. It takes 2 years. These men, I don't know. You have to, like I said, I read my Bible with imagination. So I ask myself, Were they believers in God, in Jehovah God, or are they worshipping other deities, whatever is worshipped, where they came from, etc., etc.? I don't know what that background is. They've seen a star. Now, first, there's a level of investment that God has put in this story for a star to rise just because Jesus has been, like a new star. But also, he's investing in revelation for these guys, that they have seen something new. They are studying, the heavens. They've seen something new, and they have connected with the revelation of what it means.
Yeah.
A king has been born who is worthy of worship. That's a thing that God is doing. He's helping them connect with what's happening, what he's doing right now. On the flip side, now, I don't know what their religious background is. So this is what it says. They arrived in Jerusalem. In verse 2, it says, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." And then he says, King Herod was troubled, and so he called all the religious leaders. King Herod understood that there was a king who would be born eventually. And he calls the religious leaders and he says, this king who's meant to come at some point, Ebu, tell me that story again. How's that supposed to work? And the religious leaders are so proficient in their understanding of the scriptures. They're able to inform King Herod. And they tell him,
about this
he's going to be born in Bethlehem. He's going to be, these things, da, 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 da. They have all the answers because they've read the scriptures, they've memorized them, they know the law and the prophets and that whole thing, the whole shebang, they got it. But here's the interesting thing. The Messiah was born 2 years ago. They still don't know.
They don't know.
They missed it.
But they knew enough now to, when they were asked the question, theory. They now know exactly what's going to happen.
They're able to answer the questions.
Yes.
But somehow, guys out there in the bundus
found something else,
are connecting with the revelation that the king has been born.
And moving towards it.
In fact, they're even understanding that our response to this birth is worship. And we will pay the price to get to where the king is, and we will worship him.
I love it.
But here are the religious leaders, the wise men of Israel.
And
Can
they
we call
knew.
them that? They're the ones who know the scriptures. They're the ones guiding people in the way of God, teaching them the scriptures, helping them understand the will of God in their generation and in that season. But somehow, the thing they have been waiting for expectantly has happened. It hasn't just happened. It happened 2 years ago, but they missed it.
And that's amazing because I'm thinking one set of people, the wise men, have this zeal and this passion to follow God.
Yeah.
And the end goal is to worship him.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
So even as for us at this Christmas, there are those people who our zeal is to follow God and to worship him. But there are those who also know, and it happens a lot with the religious people, people who know but never do anything about it. Because something must have piqued the revelation of the three wise men, that these other religious leaders, they were like, oh, whatever, it's just a star. So they knew, but they didn't do anything about it.
And so now, which is what I was saying, this Christmas day, as we celebrate tomorrow, you have to determine your response. The revelation has come. A king has been born. And at every turn, a sort of a response was being provoked. The religious leaders totally missed it. King Herod, when he understood it now from the wise men, his response is complete opposition to the thing that God is doing. It's kill all the boys. And so that will happen for you and me as well. That we have to choose our response. Are we going to oppose? Or, which is what Herod did. Are we going to be indifferent? Which is what the
religious leaders,
the Pharisees,
they were
the
indifferent.
Sadducees, they were like, no. When it happens, we'll know. But like, it happened.
And then we'll know, and then, because the other thing was they didn't seem to have a plan.
Absolutely.
We'll know, and then what will happen?
Now, in the book of Luke, you connect with two individuals, Anna the prophetess and Simeon. They knew the Messiah came when he came. Which means it's not that the revelation was not available to the Israelites. It's that the religious leaders had adopted a posture that meant they could not connect with what God was doing. And all their study of the scriptures could not help them.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
All their study of the scriptures could not help them.
You're speaking all the scriptures they've memorized. We are taught some powerful things about those religious leaders, that when you were by the time you were a rabbi, you had first been discipled as a rabbi. And we are told that part of how rabbis would test their disciples is, for me as a rabbi, I'll quote a verse. There weren't verses and chapters in the scriptures then. So I'll quote a statement from the scriptures, the law and the prophets. And my disciple should be able to quote what was said before it.
Wow.
And should be able to quote what was said after it. So that's how much they've memorized it. But it doesn't help them.
You know, I'm just feel like, I'm like, wow, that's so profound, because there are a lot of people who are very religious, flowing in religion, you know scriptures, but those scriptures are not helping you. They're not even helping you discern the time and the season. They're not helping you to jump into action. Because what I like about the wise men is they followed, and then they were going to follow to worship. So I feel like on this 24th, you need to understand, are you worshiping God? Are you following what he wants? Are you indifferent to what he's doing? Are you being like Herod, who's trying to even destroy God's plan? You know, sometimes I think God just sits in the heavens and laughs. Like, are you serious? Like, you're trying,
he's looking at us like,
a king is born, and you're saying you're going to kill, so you're going to kill all, that's your strategy now, kill all the 2-year-olds so that there's no king. The king has been born, and if God determined there's a king,
it's happening.
There's a king. It's happening. With or without your contribution. So I think Pastor James has really brought up pertinent issue as we reflect on this day. Is one, are we following God to worship him? Are we following him with everything? 2 years is a lot. What are you ready to give to follow this God? And maybe even there's a level of sacrifice already you've sacrificed. Maybe you're sitting there thinking it's too much. Like, I cannot, this sacrifice is too much. Look at what other people have sacrificed. But I love also the religious leaders' posture, who knew something was happening, but were indifferent to it, you know? Like, I was wondering, why did they get the wisdom and revelation to find out what do we need to do with this information and this knowledge? And then don't be like Herod, who's trying to kill God's plan. God's plan is coming through. Whether we like the plan, don't like the plan, with the plan, God's plan is moving. And that's very, very powerful because for this Christmas, because he's God.
And I think what I see is that the most critical thing is the posture of my heart. Whether I receive the King, whether I follow Jesus, it's not even about miracles and signs. It's not about, it really is about the posture of my heart. Because these guys who had all the information academically speaking, they missed that the king had come. But then guys travel for 2 years, that's how far they're coming from, to come and worship the king. Two, spiritual people, two people who loved God, Anna and Simeon, they connect with the fact that Jesus has been born. When he's brought to the temple, immediately they know this is the Messiah. He has arrived. But at the same time, some random people, some shepherds somewhere, also received a revelation. And they came and worshipped this baby in the manger, in an unlikely place. They were able to understand that God had done something great. But there were people who missed it. Herod missed it because of the posture of his heart. The Sadducees, Pharisees, those religious leaders, they missed it because of the posture of their hearts. So the question is, what's the posture of your heart today? It's not about what God has done for you or not done for you in 2023. For sometimes our hearts are hardened because we've been waiting for a breakthrough or a miracle and it hasn't come yet. And so we feel neglected by God and it's hard for us to follow God and so on. The reality is, if your posture is not right, it doesn't matter. Even if God answers all your prayers, you will not be able to worship the King. You will not respond with submission to his will. And you will miss out on what he's doing.
And even you say that, I'm feeling like the posture of your heart is everything, in Bible school they talked about the heart till I was like, if these guys talk about the heart, what more? But they did, and what they were trying to tell us is what the scripture says. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, and out of the heart flows the issues of life. So I'm loving the way Pastor James has brought it to a close. The posture of your heart is what is important. So as you reflect on this Sunday, just sit and reflect on the posture of your heart. And I feel like this is not a crowd thing. This is a you thing. It's about you by yourself, sitting down and saying, who am I? Am I being the wise men? Am I being the religious leaders? Am I being Herod who's trying to kill God's plan? What am I trying to do in this time and situation? And what do I need to do? And then the other thing I really felt that the Lord gave me a revelation about, which I was so happy about, but we're now closing, is that it's his birthday. I just wonder, how did it become about us? How did it become about us eating chapatis? And what? How did we turn it around? When it's somebody else's birthday, we celebrate that person.
Absolutely.
So it's his birthday. Celebrate him. It's his birthday. It's not your birthday. It's his birthday. So celebrate him with the right posture of heart. And what he wants is you. I love that. You know, that's what he wants. What he wants is you. So I pray that you have a really great Christmas, but I pray that there's a lot of reflection in your heart and that God speaks to you like crazy. And I'm also sensing, don't ignore how God is speaking, how he's communicating. He's trying to tell you something. He's trying to get your attention. Just also spend some time with him so that you understand what it is that he's trying to tell you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. God bless you guys. Have a really, really Merry Christmas. I hope you're in church. I hope you're reflecting. And I hope that you can I also sense my spirit, get with a community of faith, because that's what you need. God bless you. Merry Christmas. Bye.